read. hurry up يا شباب. طيب. Today we will be doing the role of the government. فهنا the government is playing a role in each and every economy. Okay, what does it do بقى؟ يعني usually government دي أصلا present in where? Do we find the government in the market economy? لا, really, not really. يبقى the government is not in the market economy أو according to the theoretical market economy the government does not exist. لا, واحنا اتفقنا المره اللي فاتت ان all او ما اتفقناش خليني اقول لكم ان all economies worldwide in practice are mixed economies. Or economies worldwide are mixed economies, which means what? Which means that some resources are owned by the government, some other resources are owned by the private sector. يبقى I have مثلا a public school, a public university, I have rules, I have regulations, كل ده provided by the public sector. I have street lighting, I have taxes, كل ده is done by the government. وكمان I have a private sector that is producing goods for profit. يلا يا عمر يا وليد افتح الكاميرا انت وعلي. خلاص؟ فهنا the government is playing a role in each and every economy. طيب which economy بقى؟ basically the mixed economy وبasically the planned economy طبعا it's playing a role. طيب ال degree of intervention of the government will vary from one country to another. Will vary from depending on what? Depending on the extent of market failure and how depending on the extent of market failure and how effective government policies measures are. يبقى there is market failure. حد فاكر يعني ايه market failure؟ ده قعدنا نحكي فيه حكاوي. What is market failure? Can you give me an example of a market failure?
Is it inefficient distribution of goods and services?
Of goods and services?
Yeah.
Inefficient distribution of goods and services, this is market failure. What do you mean? Give me an example.
Like مثلا it's what I can't explain.
طب ما احنا امتحاننا كمان شهرين هنعمل ايه؟ at least انت you tried او يعني you tried wrong بس I mean you tried. الباقي ايه؟ what is the definition of market failure؟ طب هنعمل ايه يا جماعة؟ بس عايزة اقول لكم على حاجة، اللي انتوا بتعملوه ده ما تجوش تعيطوا يوم النتيجة وتقولوا احنا ليه ما جبناش الاي ستار. ما حدش فيكم يقدر يتكلم يوم النتيجة ويقول انا ليه ما جبتش الاي ستار. اوكي، ليه ما جبتوش الاي ستار؟ عشان ما بتحلوش الهوم ورك. ليه ما جبتوش الاي ستار؟ عشان مش بتذاكروا اون ديلي بيسز. ليه مش هتجيبوا الاي ستار لو ما فوقتوش لنفسكم؟ عشان التو ريزونز دول، وهو ريكوردد. هسمعكم ريكوردنج ده يوم النتيجه. اللي انتوا بتعملوه ده خطر جدا. when a monopoly abuses the market, this is an example of a market failure. When an example of market failure is when yes, the presence of a monopoly. يعني ايه shortage of supply؟ when the resources يا جماعة fail to produce what is wanted by people in the right quantity, what is wanted, when the resources available in the country fail to produce what is wanted by people and in the right quantity with the lowest cost possible. Three conditions that may lead to market failure. Resources are not allocated to produce what is wanted by people. Resources are not producing what is wanted in the right quantity. يعني wrong quantity. Okay, and it's not in the lowest price possible. Resources may be producing what you want, okay, but not in the lowest cost possible. يعني ايه؟ يعني street lighting. Street lighting is an example of a market failure. Monopoly is an example of a market failure لأن they can restrict the supply and they can charge a high price. Merit goods are market failure. Demerit goods are market failure. حد فاكر يعني ايه merit و demerit goods؟
Yes.
What is it? Tell me merit goods.
Demerit goods like tobacco, cigarette, and this type of
اوكي
stuff.
حلو قوي برافو. demerit goods are like tobacco, cigarettes والحاجات دي. What is the definition?
The definition of demerit goods,
Mm,
it's the products that are like harmful to the public.
that's not the definition. Hmm. It's not a complete definition.
This isn't demerit goods when they like set high taxes on these products, so like because it's harmful, so people can't afford them.
Is this the demerit good ولا this is a way to tackle the market failure?
It's a bit of both.
A bit of both. Demerit goods, these are the goods that are more harmful than consumers realize. More harmful than consumers realize. So consumers, they over-consume it. Like what? Like cigarettes. People, they don't realize the real harm of cigarettes. They think that and the cigarette is only harming them. Okay, when somebody is smoking, he thinks that smoking is only affecting himself. لا, this is not affecting him. He is affecting others as well. There are passive smokers around him. People around him will develop health diseases, okay, or health problems as a result of him smoking. Then these are more harmful than consumers realize, so they over consume it. افتحوا الكاميراز. مش هيبقى قاعدة مذاكرة وكمان مش قاعدين في الحصة. طيب, the government will influence the local economy depending on particular industries which may be state-owned. يبقى the government may be taking decisions about how much to produce and the wages to pay and which directly affect the local community. يبقى in the state-owned, يعني if the government is owning a public school, a public hospital, is owning a water supply, is owning whatever, فهنا they in these states that are in the places that are owned by the government, they will decide how much to be produced. They are deciding as well the wages to be paid by the people working in these industries. Okay, يبقى industries in the private sector may be subsidized by the government. يبقى how the government is influencing the local economies. I am having businesses, I am employing people, I am giving wages أنا كgovernment, I am producing certain goods and services for people, and I am subsidizing certain businesses. يعني a business that is failing in the private sector, it is failing, it is about to bankrupt. يبقى أنا كgovernment, what do? I can give a subsidy, which is what? Who can tell me what is a subsidy? علي وعمر وليد, افتحوا الكاميراز. What is a subsidy يا شباب؟
Miss, can I say,
اتفضل.
is it like a payment to like an individual or like a business in cash?
Why they are paying this? ما هو payment to an individual like in cash يعني wage.
Yeah.
Miss, can I say?
اتفضل.
It's a payment made by the government to like a business owner to help to help the unemployment rates and increase GDP of the country.
Yeah, a subsidy is there to support. A subsidy is a financial help. It is a financial help, an amount of money that is given
This
to
financial help by the government given to firms to decrease the cost of production.
Yes, to reduce the cost of production, to make them more productive. طب now this financial help is given also to the firms. Why? Because a bankrupting firm, a firm will bankrupt. So what will happen if the firm bankrupts? A lot of people will be made redundant. A lot of people will be unemployed. But in order to prevent them from being unemployed, the government will pay an amount of money that is not to be repaid back. يعني this business will receive this financial help and it doesn't have to pay it back to the government. It doesn't have to pay interest charges. فهنا this is a help that is going to reduce the cost of the business, and thus they can improve their performance and keep on operating rather than shutting down. طب الجفرمنت بتعمل كده ليه؟ Because it doesn't want to have people being unemployed. يبقى أنا I want to from one in one hand I am increasing I'm maintaining the GDP, the total value of goods and services. يعني the business will be productive, will keep on producing, so there will be a output that is produced. This is one thing. The GDP of the country will not fall much and the unemployment will not increase. ما هو if the unemployment is increasing, then the government will have to pay unemployment benefits, which is the cost again. Let the business be productive or solve its financial difficulties in order to maintain in order to maintain the employment of people, in order to have them afford their living. These people will be able to afford their living. Local governments may provide a range of goods and services, including what? But this is the third way. How the government influences the economy. And هنا local government, okay, will يعني أنا عندي إيه? For example, if I'm talking about Egypt كمان اسمع يا عمرو. يا عمرو. Okay, فهنا if I'm talking about Egypt for example, أنا عندي Egypt is a place. عندي small areas like what? Cities. Like Alexandria is a city, Cairo is a city, Banha is a city, and so on. فهنا I am having cities. ففي هنا في local governments in each and every city. I'm talking about Alexandria for example, the local government in Alexandria will be providing a range of goods of services to that area. يبقى the government, each and every government responsible for a governorate or responsible for a city, they or responsible for a state, إذا بنتكلم على United States, they will be providing certain goods and cities for the local community. Like what? Like refuse collection, collecting the garbage. Like libraries. They are responsible for providing libraries to people, housing and local roads. They may be providing certain houses for the poor people of the local city. Okay, and local roads. Okay, how they are doing this, how they are providing these, the government will collect taxes, okay, and charges by the government, and the government is collecting taxes and other charges in order to finance this. How can I have this service operating? Libraries, how can I finance, and so on, from the taxes that are collected from people. Grants for the national government may be received. Who is receiving that grant? Again, a grant is like a subsidy. And a grant is a financial help given to given to the local government. يبقى هنا the national government, the government of the whole country. This is the government of the whole country that is running the whole country. Will allocating some budget to the local government. الديتيلز دي مش مهمة، بس انتوا لازم تبقوا عارفين ان local government is doing what? Is providing certain services like refuse collection, street lighting, housing, local roads, and so on. يبقى government is doing three things. They are having public sector organizations where they are providing important goods and services for people, and where they are hiring people and giving them wages. They are providing they are giving subsidies to the failing businesses in order to keep people employed. They are as well to keep them from being unemployed and keep them maintain their employment. الثالثة, they are doing certain services like refuse collection. يبقى the government owns certain industries and assets such as schools, hospitals. They are producer. The government itself is a producer. كل businesses that are owned by the government, they are producing a good or a service. It is a regulator. It is passing laws. يبقى it is a regulator. It is passing laws in order to regulate the state of the economy. Okay, and for example, it is passing law related to the pollution, passing law related to the laws related to employment and selection, employment laws, consumer protection laws, pollution laws, فهنا in order to regulate the economy. And it is a collector of taxes and a director of the level of economic activity. Okay, it influences the level of an economic activity. طيب, how the government is a producer? And the government is a producer, and certain goods and services are provided by the government. Okay, they produce things like they يعني a lot of products are provided by the government and they are called natural monopoly. Can you give me an example of a natural monopoly؟ أخدناها قبل كده. الحصة اللي فاتت أخدناها وفي أول السنة أخدناها. What is a natural monopoly يا شباب؟
Miss, can I say an example?
اتفضل.
Water.
Yes, water. What kind of water?
Like ocean water and this stuff.
Ocean water.
Yeah.
بذمتك وديانتك ocean water الجفرمنت هي اللي providing it؟
No. Sorry. Like filtered water and this type of stuff.
filtered water.
Mm.
يعني ايه filtered water؟ يعني نسلة وكده؟
ممكن. Yeah.
ممكن يا انت سمعت كده كلمة water وخلاص انت عارف ان فيها water بس انت مش عارف اي water.
Yeah.
tap water. يعني ايه tap water؟ المية in your kitchen. Water in the kitchen is tap water. Water in the toilet is tap water. Water at your household is tap water. تمام؟ لا filtered water ولا هي نسلة ولا حاجة ولا ocean water. Ocean water is what? Is a natural resource. يا ما شاء الله. يا ما شاء الله. يعني اهو عمرو بس اللي موجود في الحصة وبيحاول والباقيين ما شاء الله الله أكبر. حاجة very disappointing. So natural monopoly when there is a waste. وقلناها مليون مرة ودي المرة المليون وواحد. Okay, natural monopoly when there is a waste of resources to have competition into providing competitors providing that product or a service. Okay, it is a waste of resources to have competitors producing that good or a service like what? Like tap water, like electricity. Last time حتى في الحصة اللي فاتت قلت لكم ايه؟ It is a waste of resources ان انا يبقى عندي 2-3 companies that are providing me with tap water. Why is it so? Because this will involve a lot of digging, a lot of infrastructure under the ground. A lot of pipelines, network of pipelines that is connecting water from the water company to each and every place in the country. There isn't enough space under the ground for companies to compete with their pipelines. So it has got to be provided by one company only. نفس الكلام railway stations. We don't have enough land to have 2-3 companies that are competing to provide railway station services. فهنا it has got to be provided by a monopoly. Since it's going to be a monopoly, then this monopoly has got to be in the hands of the government in order to stop exploiting people. يعني not to take advantage of people in order for the quality of the service to come reasonable, to reach us reasonable, and in order for the prices of the service to be reasonable as well. سمعتوا الكلام ده قبل كده ولا أول مرة تسمعوه؟
I heard it before.
يبقى the government is a producer. What does it produce? It produces things that the private sector are not interested at. Okay, if left to the hands of the private sector will not, certain goods and services will not be provided. Certain goods and services will be provided with the that will be underproduced. يا إما not produced at all يا إما underproduced يا إما natural monopoly. يبقى الثلاث حاجات اللي government is producing it يا إما natural monopoly يا إما underproduced يا إما not produced. طب ادينا examples يا مس. Underproduced is education, healthcare. The businesses in the private sector, they will be willing to provide goods, health care and education only for the rich who can pay. Your private school, the school that you are learning at, will not be willing to provide the service for somebody who does not pay. If you pay, you get enrolled in the school. If you don't pay, you don't get involved in the school. Enrolled in the school. نفس الكلام. If you go to a private hospital, if you pay, they will give you healthcare services. If you don't pay, no healthcare services for you. فهنا these are underproduced. These are market failure. Underproduction is a market failure. يبقى the government is intervening لما يكون عندي market failure. Products that are underproduced اللي هم يكونوا merit goods like healthcare and education, the private sector is not willing to produce them at all because that will they are producing them in small quantities عشان ايه? Only for those who can pay. طب في بقى not produced at all like what? like public goods. واخدنا public goods قبل كده. Public goods, these are what? These are goods that the private sector are not willing to produce. They are non-excludable, okay, and non-rivalry. يبقى a public good is a good that is non-excludable. يعني إيه؟ I cannot exclude payers from non-payers. Like what? Like street lighting. Okay? يبقى I cannot exclude payers from once I am providing the street lighting, anybody who is walking at the street, whether he pays or he doesn't pay, then he will get the benefit of a street lighting. Once it's provided for one person, all others will be benefiting. I cannot exclude payers from non-payers. I cannot give the service to those who paid and stop providing it for those who did not pay. That's why the private sector will not be interested to do that. لأنه هيبقى في عندي دايما free riders, people that will go and use the street lighting without paying for it. طيب, they are non-rivalry. Which means what? Which means that if one is receiving it, that doesn't reduce the benefit of another. If you go in the street, you walk in the street at night, okay, you enjoy the street light, this does not reduce the enjoyment or the service of another person. This does not mean that another person will have less light in the street or cannot see quite well at night because of dim street. لا, if you get street lighting, another person will get street lighting, and your consumption of the service does not reduce the benefit to another person. Unlike what? Unlike if you go to a restaurant. If you go to a restaurant and you order a certain meal, this means that this meal, this particular meal, will not be available to another person. This is rivalry. Sometimes you go to a place, you're like, خلاص, we are in shortage of that product. Why we're in shortage of that product? خلاص, other people, they bought it, so it's not available for you. Clear? So the private sector will not be willing to produce certain goods اللي هم ايه؟ اللي هم the public goods, like defense, street lighting, police, army, and so on. يبقى most countries seek to ensure that their key industries survive and do well. Okay, there are certain strategic industries or strategic services that has got to be برضو in the hands of the government, cannot be given to the private sector. If in the hands of the private sector, it will exploit people. Okay, like what? Like مثلا a strategic service, maybe provision of fuel, provision of electricity, and so on. Most of the industries are run by the state enterprises. Most of these will be run by the state enterprises. They received favored loans from banks, and those that are strategic industries, they get favored loans. Favored loans, يعني loans that are with lower interest charge. Okay, the government would stop foreign companies from taking them over or merging with them, such as rail infrastructure, which is run and regulated by the government to prevent consumers being exploited and prevent private firms from charging high prices. يبقى هنا these برضو one of the strategic industries is what is the railway stations or the rail infrastructure. It has got, they will not be merged. They will not be, يعني a private sector cannot merge, cannot buy shares in it. A private sector cannot take it over. Why? It's a strategic service. Without it, people will not be able to go to their work. Without it, people will not be able to move from one area to another. It's a very essential for people. I cannot give it to the private sector as well. And if I am giving this, which is a monopoly as well, then they will be exploiting consumers. What is the meaning of exploiting? يعني taking advantage of them. They may be charging high prices and give poor service. Okay, طيب, in addition to produce at lower average cost, a high output may be required, and at such an output a loss may be incurred. يبقى هنا in addition ان هما the government will want to do what? Will want to control that in order, because it's operating in a large scale. If it operates in a large scale, then average cost would be reduced. يبقى I want to keep it in the hands of one business. Okay, in the hands of one owner. Why? Because that one owner will be producing this on a large scale. فهنا lower average cost. This is one thing why these strategic companies will be in the hands of the government, will be owned by one entity, which is the government, in order to operate on a large scale, so average cost will be reduced. Okay, well, these may not be provided. These may if not كمان operating on a large scale, انه there might be a loss. That's why it has got to be controlled by one business in order to operate it on a large scale. Cannot give it to a lot of small businesses that will not be operating in a large scale. Government also produces essential products such as housing on the grounds of equity and merit in public goods. Okay? يبقى housing is very important. Housing for the poor. هنا مش housing for anyone. Housing for the poor. Those who cannot afford to have their own house or rent their own house, they can go and register and get a يا إما free of charge, free of rent house from the government. يا إما يكون very low rental charges are collected. Why? Because this is on the grounds of equity. Everyone is entitled to shelter. Rich or poor, you have to have shelter. This is basic human needs. نفس الكلام بالنسبة للeducation, نفس الكلام بالنسبة للhealth care. This is on the grounds of equity. Everyone is entitled to that important good or a service. Clear? Questions? طيب, public sector contracts and partnership between public sector and private sector. يبقى not necessarily, yes, it might be controlled by the government, but not necessarily that the government is the provider. Okay, يعني the government may be delegating a private sector business to operate this on their behalf. يعني let's imagine مثلا إنه the government is مثلا is providing elderly house. elderly houses in England. In UK is supposed to be provided by the government. Okay, is the government official, or do the government officials run these on a daily basis? يعني elderly houses, يعني these are people that are above 60 مثلا, very old people. They need to be staying in a house, okay, to get health care, to get food, to get shelter, and so on. So a place for elderly people to stay in. خلاص؟ فهنا those who are old, they have the government is providing them with a place to stay in. It's supposed to be provided by the government. The government may have a contract with a private sector, and this private sector firm is doing the day-to-day running of that business, but the government is paying for that firm. يبقى this private sector firm is doing the service on behalf of the government. Who is the provider? The provider is the government, but it is doing a subcontract. It is contracting a company to do it on their behalf. Like what, Yamis? Like Pfizer, for example. Pfizer is a pharmaceutical company, okay, and they are doing the running of the elderly houses in England, in UK. Okay, they are providing healthcare services. They are providing services for the elderly people in these houses that are provided by the government. The Pfizer is paying the cost. No, the government is paying the cost and paying a profit margin for Pfizer as well. The government is paying the cost of that service, and it is paying profits for the profits it's paying Pfizer to be profitable. However, okay, the one that is doing the day-to-day operations, caring for the people, is the Pfizer. Is that question clear? Is that thing clear? يعني for example, another example, let's imagine who is the one that is supposed to provide infrastructure in a country? Who is the provider of infrastructure? Railway, roads, railway stations, bridges, roads, and so on. This is the provided by the, again, by the government. The government is responsible for the infrastructure. Infrastructure includes roads, includes bridges, includes ports, airports, electricity, internet, water. All this is provided by the government. The government is doing this on its own. And let's imagine that there is a bridge to be constructed. The government officials will go and construct the bridge? No. They will be having a bid for companies, private sector companies, to offer them to build the bridge. يبقى the private sector company will be building the bridge, and the government is paying for the cost of building plus the profit margin of that company. Is that clear?
Yes.
يبقى private sector firms provide a range of products and services for the public sector. يبقى the private sector firm is doing certain goods and services for the public sector. Firms constructing, for example, firms constructing and maintaining roads for the government may, in many countries, private pharmaceutical firms supply state health care systems with medicine. يبقى هنا one example is firms doing the construction, a private firm doing the construction, the government is paying. يبقى a private sector firm is having a contract to provide certain service for the government. Or pharmaceutical companies, they are having a contract to provide healthcare supply with مثلا medicine. Supply with medicine لمين؟ للpublic sector. Hospitals, they rely on medicine. The government is not producing the medicine. The government is buying that medicine from a private sector firm. يبقى هنا the private sector is providing something in order to the government, is for providing a product or a service for the government to be able to run its businesses. This is they are contracting. But this is one example in the government is making a contract, is signing a contract مع private sector firms to provide something on their behalf. Another thing is that there might be a partnership. Okay, a partnership between the government and the private sector businesses. Okay, this is where the private sector initially provides finance for a state project. Okay, building a hospital. Meaning building the hospital, it is the public sector building the hospital. The private sector firm then builds it and maintains it for a number of years. The government rents it and operates it, buying it back over time. Okay. تاني. And who is building the hospital? Who's building the hospital? It is the government building a hospital. حلو. This is a partnership بتقول يبقى هنا in this situation is providing the finance to build the hospital. It is the government. It is the government that is maintaining it. Okay, it maintains it for a number of years. The government rents it and operates it. يبقى government is renting it. لا sorry هنا sorry أنا اتلخبطت. هنا it's the private sector who is building the hospital and the private sector who is maintaining the hospital. The government is renting that hospital and operates it. Okay. And then it buys it back over time. It buys it from the private sector over time. يبقى يبقى الأول who's investing the money? It is the private sector. Who's investing the money? It is the private sector. Who's maintaining it, who's operating it, is the public. Public is operating it and it's paying installments for the private sector to own it. يبقى كأنه the private sector is doing it for them in installments. Is providing this in installments. In other cases, third case بقى إنه the public and private sector provide part of a service. يبقى each provide part of the service. Private sector firms, for example, may run train operations. Okay, they are running the train operations, while the government builds and maintains the infrastructure. دي اللي أنا كنت بكلمكم عليه في الأول. إن the government is the one that is building the railway station, for example. يبقى could be دول two scenarios are opposite. خدوا بالكم. The two scenarios are opposite. This scenario is that the government is building the railway station, the private sector is running it. Okay, is running the day-to-day operations, the timings of the trains, maintenance, labor, recruitment and selection, الحاجات دي. هنا the opposite بقى. هنا the private sector is the one that is building, whereas the government is the one that is running. يبقى this is a partnership. يبقى could be the government قلنا it is providing certain goods and services. يا إما government is contracting. يبقى الثلاثة ways. The government is doing a contract مع private sector. Private sector will provide on behalf of the government. Government will pay them in return of the things that they are doing, like constructing a bridge. أو the government is the one that is building. The one that is building, where private sector is the one that is running the service. أو العكس صحيح. The private sector هنا partnership. دول forms of partnership. The government is the one. هنا بقى the private is building the company, and the private sector is operating مرة the private sector is the one that is building والgovernment operating, والتانية the government is building and the private is operating. يبقى government builds, private runs the service. يبقى هنا providing finance to build, to provide the service. ممكن تكون ال private sector builds لكن ال government runs. خلاص؟ يعني هنا an example of what? An example of railway stations. هنا an example of medical service, hospitals. يبقى احنا كنا بنتكلم في ايه؟ What were we discussing? Or what was I explaining? Explaining the government as a provider. احنا قلنا the government is playing a role in the economy. What is the role of the economy? It is a provider. It is providing certain goods and services. Okay, certain goods and services. What kind of goods and services? The goods and services that are underproduced, like merit goods. Okay, the goods and services that will not be produced at all, like by the private sector, like public goods. Okay, the strategic goods, like what? Like electricity, like railway stations. Is that clear? يبقى the previous part that I have explained to you is the role of the government as a provider. It is providing certain goods and services. Okay, يا إما تكون providing merit goods، يا إما تكون providing public goods يعني أو underproduced goods, or goods that are not produced at all by the private sector, or strategic goods. And the goods strategic يعني إيه؟ يعني without in the absence of that good, this will affect the productivity, and this will affect the well-being of the country as a whole. This will affect the well-being of the country as a whole. فهي strategic, very important for the survival of the country as well, of the economy. خلاص يبقى government is a provider. When it is a provider كمان it is employing people and giving them wages. Is that clear? Questions? والله العظيم انا حاسه ان انا بس في الحصه دي بقول بلا بلا بلا. فاهمين حاجه ولا انا بتكلم وخلاص؟
Yes, miss, I'm focusing with you.
طب الحصه النهارده لعمرو بس؟ يا علي انت موجود في الحصه وفاهم؟ يا عمر يا عادل
Yes, miss.
يا ريان.
Yes, it's clear.
اوكي. عمر وليد.
Yes, it's clear.
طيب. The second role, which is what? The government as an employer. يبقى the government is an employer. طبعا it is providing all these goods and services. طبعا he has got to employ people. يبقى the government employs workers and the employ managers to operate its state enterprises. يبقى state enterprises like what? Like for example hospitals, schools, حتى people working in the water company, people working in the electricity company, they are having managers and workers. Okay, طب why is the government having these? One of the objectives of a public sector organization is to reduce unemployment. يبقى I am having businesses that are owned by the government. There are businesses that are owned by the government. One of the objectives is to provide goods and services that are wanted by people, that are essential to people, with good quality, with reasonable prices. وكمان the government, through these organizations, they want to reduce unemployment. طيب, in these organizations, they can limit the wage rises. So that what? So that demand will not increase much, so that inflation will not increase. Okay, what is the meaning of inflation? The rise in average, it is the rise in prices on average. Average prices are rising, this is inflation. يعني you go buy a product, you find that it is expensive. Another product is expensive. يبقى هنا on average, the prices are rising. This is called inflation. Doesn't mean that each and every product is having a higher price. But on average, most of them, majority of them are having a higher price. طب why the majority of products may be having a higher price? Why inflation might occur? One of the reasons of inflation occurring is that excessive demand. Okay, excess demand. Okay, أو total أو excess demand أو actually aggregate demand. To increase in aggregate demand. Aggregate demand يعني total demand in the country. يبقى consumers are demanding. One of the things is that consumers, they have higher wages. If they have higher wages, they will go and demand goods and services. طب goods and services, into you know that they are available in limited supply ولا unlimited supply? The goods provided in the country are unlimited ولا limited?
limited.
They are limited. طب أنا عندي limited goods but the demand is way higher. Limited supply of products but the demand is very high. What will happen to the prices?
It will increase.
It will increase. يبقى when demand exceeds supply, when aggregate demand, total demand in the economy is greater than aggregate supply, total supply in the economy, this will lead to increased prices. This is called inflation. طيب, what is leading to that? Aggregate demand. ليه? When people are having higher incomes, their demand will increase. يبقى government doesn't want to increase the price, the wages, ولا it wants to control the wages in order to control inflation. Inflation is not desirable. What will happen if the prices are high? You will buy or you will not buy?
You won't buy.
Not buy. If you don't buy, then businesses will be making profits or will be making losses?
Losses.
If they are making losses, what will happen to the employment? Do they keep people or they make them redundant?
They'll make them redundant.
What will happen to unemployment?
It will increase.
Okay, unemployment is increasing. Is that desirable?
No.
طيب, now businesses, they are making losses. Then there is a greater GDP or a lower GDP?
Lower.
A lower GDP, then the economy is weaker. It's not strong. A high GDP is desirable. I want the value of goods and services in the country to rise, which indicates that the economy is productive. يبقى هنا, if inflation is there, inflation is an average increase in prices. If the prices on average are increasing, then what will happen? Then this will lead to recession. يبقى لي بعديها على طول بيحصل recession. بعد الانفلation, recession. The government doesn't want recession to occur. Recession, this is a period of time where there is little expenditure by consumers. Prices are too high. Then consumers will not be able to afford it. They will not buy. Recession is high. Then in this situation, people will not buy goods and services. Okay. Then then the businesses will bankrupt. The businesses will bankrupt and unemployment with GDP will fall. Clear?
Yes.
يبقى the government will want to reduce wages or control the wages. لانه هي الويجز المشكله. excessive income with people, then excessive demand, then recession, then prices increase, then people will not be able to afford goods and services, and recession will be the end result. Not desirable. طيب now, it can set examples of terms of employment practices. أنا كemployer, أنا كbusiness, I want to يعني أنا كgovernment, what do I want for my workers? What am I aiming for my workers? I want them to get reasonable wages. صح ولا غلط؟
صح.
طيب I want them to have good working conditions. I don't want them to be discriminated. Discriminated against, no discrimination. يبقى no discrimination. You don't discriminate against the workers. You give them good working conditions. You give them reasonable wages. Okay. You set an example. يبقى what is the purpose of the government as an employer? It sets an example for the private businesses to follow. يبقى أنا كgovernment, I am passing laws. بعمل laws like what? Like the legal minimum wage, which is a legal minimum amount of money that the worker receive for, that each and every worker will receive for his work. فهنا, for example, the legal minimum wage, whether you are skilled or unskilled, you get $12 per hour. This is by law. Skilled or not skilled, the government is passing law تقول إنه في $12 per hour. يبقى أنا as a government, I will lead by example. How I will lead by example? إنه I will not give less than $12 per hour. طب أنا government, I am passing laws against discrimination. I am passing laws against mistreating workers, unfair dismissal, for example. يبقى هنا أنا I will set a rule. خلاص, I will rule by example. إنه هنا whatever laws and related to employment laws, whatever employment laws that I am passing, then in this situation, I will be the first one to implement in the businesses that are owned by the government. يبقى providing good quality training, preventing discrimination, providing good working conditions, providing good pension, reasonable pay, and so on. يبقى as a provider, as an employer, it is controlling the wages عشان to control inflation. It is providing good working conditions. It is allowing people to have jobs that will allow them to afford their living, that will allow the country as a whole to reduce the amount of unemployment. طيب, again, the government will have a role at an international level. يبقى كل اللي احنا اتكلمنا فيه دول ممكن يبقى local level. احنا قلنا the government in the local level is doing what? It is providing certain goods and services like libraries and so on. This is on the local level. طب وقلنا عن national level, all the things that we've mentioned are national level. Providing employment, being an employer, being a regulator, and so on. طب international level, some governments, they promote free international trade. Some government, they do that, not all of them. Some of them will see that international trade is good for their economies. يعني international trade, يعني removing the barriers to trade, يعني remove any taxes, any import tax. يبقى allow the companies, local companies, to import products from abroad and sell them inside our country. يعني let's imagine we are talking about Egypt. If there is free international trade, the government will remove import taxes, so it will become cheaper for the Egyptians to import products from the United States. Will become cheaper مش because the American products are getting cheaper, لا, because now we will have to pay less taxes to the government. خلاص, ادي أول حاجة. طيب, and they are removing the quotas. A quota is a physical limit on the quantity that can enter the country. يعني let's imagine a government is putting a quota of only 500 cars a year to be imported from USA. يعني not more than 500 cars. طب people they want to import 10,000 cars, لا, not allowed. طب they want 1,000 cars, لا, not allowed. There is a limit. This is a physical limit on the quantity that can be imported from one country. And the physical limit here, it says my limit is 500 cars only. No more than 500 cars can be brought from outside. طب this, I am putting import tax, I am putting a quota to protect my local economy. The import tax, what is it? The import tax will increase the cost of the product. I am importing a product that is worth $100. The government will collect 10% tax. So the product will be sold to the consumers at $110. It's expensive. Okay? And the quota makes the product unavailable. It will not be available and the quantity is low. أو كمان any product that is scarce will have a high or a low price يا شباب.
High price.
A high price. يبقى هنا this is a way of protecting. طب I'm removing this. I'm removing the quota and I am removing the tariff and I am allowing free trade. The companies can import products from outside and they can export products to other countries as well. You can buy products from another country or sell your products to another country. يبقى allowing firms to export and import what they want. This is claimed to increase efficiency. ليه؟ لأن if the imported products are coming cheaper and of better quality than the local ones, the products I am buying from China, my country, Egypt, is buying from China, they are of better quality and lower prices than the Egyptian products, then the Egyptian producers will be afraid of that competitor. They will have to find ways to improve their efficiency and reduce their average cost. They have to find ways to improve their quality. They have to find ways in order to have their products more competitive than others. But this will lead to efficiency. The ones that are not capable of doing this, they will bankrupt. They will have to shut down and start up businesses that are, which they are efficient at. But this is supposed to lead to a better efficiency, better usage of the resource. But this is one government. Some governments, some countries may have governments that are encouraging international trade, removing taxes and tariffs. Some other governments, they restrict imports and exports. But some other countries, they have quotas and they have tariffs. Why? They want to make it difficult for imported products to enter the country. Imported products will then be expensive and they will then be unavailable because of the import quota and tariffs. طيب, why? Because I want to protect my local industry. My local industry is still small. There is a chance for them to become large in the future and benefit from economies of scale where their average cost will be reduced. But this cannot happen in the short run. We have to give them time to develop their skills and to become well established in the market so that they can operate in a large scale. So I need to protect them. And like a government, I need to protect them. I need to stop them competing with large firms. If I am exposing my local small firms to compete, I am allowing imports from another country. And imports from the other country are cheaper and of better quality than the local ones. Then people will not buy from the local ones. Then the local ones will bankrupt and they will never become large and they will never benefit from economies of scale. If I find that this small company in the country is having a chance, there is a chance of it to expand further, benefit from economies of scale to reduce its average cost, I will support it. How? By preventing competition from large international businesses. Is that clear? So that consumers now, when they want to buy a certain product, they will only find the local business. So this allows them to earn revenue, okay, and become profitable. These profits will be reinvested in the expansion of their business. So then they can grow large, then they can benefit from economies of scale and become competitive on an international, local and international level. فاهمين حاجة ولا ايه؟
Yes.
Yes, miss.
يبقى هنا the government varies. Okay, the government varies in their policies towards foreign multinationals as well. يبقى the government is having what عندي two views of governments. في government they are supporting international trade بيقولوا this will lead to efficiency. في other governments بيقولوا لا, let's ban international trade in order to protect our local industries. Then they will, I'm giving them a chance to develop further in the future and become more competitive. طيب multinationals, some companies, some countries برضو, they want multinationals to set up in their home countries. Most of the developing nations, they want the multinationals to come and set up. Multinationals زي ايه? What is the meaning of a multinational? A multinational, this is a business that has got operations in more than one country. It has factories, retailing businesses, and services in more than one country. Either factories or retailing businesses or services in more than one country. زي ايه؟ زي Pfizer. Pfizer is a pharmaceutical multinational. Coca-Cola, Pepsi. Okay. كل بقى التشين بتاعت ماكدونالدز ومش عارفه ايه، كل دول multinational businesses. They are having operations. They're having branches in more than one country. I want that multinational to come and set up in my home country. Why? It will come, this American company coming to set up in my company, in my country. It will bring Americans to work for in my country. Well, it will bring locals.
Locals.
So they are helping in increasing employment in the country. So the multinational setting up in my home country, this will increase the employment. They are creating jobs. طيب, what else? Are they producing valuable goods and services? Yes. Let's imagine that I'm talking about Pfizer. Pfizer is an American multinational that is having operations in more than one country. Is it producing an important product? They are producing pharmaceuticals, medicine. Is medicine important for the country? It is important. They are producing important goods and services, and this can increase the GDP, gross domestic product, total value of goods and services produced in a country in 1 year. يبقى هنا they are creating jobs and they are increasing the GDP. The GDP means that the country is developing wealth, meaning that the living standard of people will increase. Okay? One measure of the living standard is the GDP. People will develop a higher living standard. And the living standard بيجي من ال ease of life. Okay? يعني جاي منين؟ جاي if people are consuming, the more they consume of goods and services, okay, the more they are having a better living standard. يبقى طبعا goods and services are available. GDP is increasing them. We don't have shortages in goods and services. So people will have a better living standard. The incomes that they are earning كمان will allow them to have a better living standard. طيب, other countries, يبقى some countries will want to have multinational setting up, especially what? Especially the developing nations. Other nations will want to stop them as they will drive some domestic firms out of the business. يبقى ممكن يكون انه my country is a developed nation, okay, a nation with high GDP already, high employment, it doesn't have healthcare problems, so these developed like the United States. يبقى developed like United States, UK, France, Germany, and so on. For these are developed nations. They don't have a lot of economic problems like the developing ones. Type, okay. These developed economies, they already have high GDP. They already have high living standard. They are having good healthcare and so on. Okay. They may not invite multinationals to come and set up in their home countries. Maybe a multinational will not be accepted. They don't want it. Why they don't want it? لأنه the multinational is a huge company. This is a huge company operating on a very large scale. If it's operating on a large scale, tell me about the average cost. Average cost will be high ولا low?
Could be low.
Could be low. Okay. What about the prices?
High.
Average cost is low, and the prices, my cost is low, then my price in comparison to other businesses would be
Higher.
low. No,
Ah,
low.
low.
انا بتكلمش على profit، بتكلم على price. My price would be, I would pass cost advantages. مش I am benefiting from economies of scale. I will pass cost advantages to the consumers by charging lower prices. مش I want to be competitive. أنا multinational. How can I be competitive? How can I survive in a competitive market? Huh? I want my business to survive in an industry that has got high competition. Then I will have to provide good quality. صح؟ Good quality. وأكون innovative. low priced. To compete, I have to have good quality. I have to have good inventions or unique selling point. I have to have low prices. فهنا in this situation, what will happen? In this situation, their quality is better than the locals. The multinationals' quality is better than the locals. Their prices are lower than the locals. They are introducing innovative products. فهنا in this situation, the small local businesses will bankrupt. Small local businesses, they don't have these cost advantages. Their prices will be higher. The cost of the local business is high. The price of the local business is high. For consumers will not buy from that local business. It will bankrupt. يبقى أنا government, I may view the multinational as a business that is a threat. I don't want that multinational to come and locate in my country. I don't want to host it. It's not invited. It's not welcomed. Then in this situation, they will be having policies that will against having the multinationals. They will stop them as they think that they will drive some domestic firms out of the business. But some countries, some governments, they will attract multinationals because they know that they will improve their GDP and will increase jobs, will create jobs. Some others, they don't want this because they will be driving. They are a factor. They are posing a threat to domestic producers. Domestic producers may bankrupt and unemployment will increase as well. Government as well may be member of a trade bloc, such as the European Union. Governments of Germany, Holland, France, and so on, they are members of the European Union. But they are having a trade bloc. This promotes trade between them. يبقى هنا they are removing trade barriers بس between them. يعني if Egypt wants to export its products to the European Union, to مثلا to Germany or France or whatever, there will be taxes. Their product will be taxed, heavily taxed. Okay? لكن if Germany is exporting to France, no taxes. يبقى between them, they are removing the taxes. They are promoting trade between them. Okay, but that can lead to better efficiency. But they are creating trade barriers against those outside the trade bloc. فهنا this is يبقى governments and international trade. هنا قلنا ايه, government is playing a role in international trade. They see that if they are joining a trade bloc, this will give the members certain benefits. This will favor the members over others. If I am importing, it's better to import from another country that is a member in the UE, in the trade bloc, لأن the products will become of good quality, cheaper prices than from outside the trade bloc. So I will have certain benefits here. Some governments belong to international trade organizations like the World Trade Organizations, okay, which deals with global rules of trade between members. يعني for example, let's imagine that country A imported products from country B. Okay, يبقى هنا imported products from country B and they delayed payments. يبقى this government imported certain products from that government and there had been a delay in the payment. They did not pay in the due date. Okay, who should they seek for help? They will seek that World Trade Organization. That World Trade Organization will rule between the countries and will say that country A is mistaken. They will have to repay immediately with a penalty, for example. Clear? Okay, the trade agreement mentioned that there are certain specifications for the products to be imported by country A. يبقى country A signed a deal مع country B to import certain products with certain specifications. Country B did not comply. Then they will reach the World Trade Organization to rule these kinds of things. When international trade happens, any disputes can be referred to the World Trade Organization, which will act as a judge, as a jury, and will give a sentence, and they will have to do what they will have to listen to. يبقى it is كمان setting the rules of trade. بتحط policies, the rules between the member countries. It aims to promote free international trade. They want to, this World Trade Organization, I want to be a member in it in order to facilitate the trade between my country and other countries. Clear يا شباب?
Yes.
Having questions?
No.
طيب, our time is up. If you have questions, you can reach me على الواتساب. I'm still waiting for the homework يا شباب. What's hindering me from discussing the homework is that you did not answer. لازم اشوف الانسرز بتاعكم قدامي عشان ابتدي اصلح. based on that هصلح انا معاكم ايه؟ هقعد اتكلم بلا 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 تاني زي كده؟ لازم تحلوا الواجب يا شباب. If you next session you did not do the homework, don't attend the session. You will not be welcomed. Is that clear؟ يا علي، يا عمر، يا ريان، خلاص عمرو عمل. Is that clear؟
Yes.
عارف يا عمرو لو
بس
رحت لقيته of poor quality مش هيحصل لك كويس. راجع نفسك. لو كانت الكواليتي of the homework that you submitted مش كويسة resubmit قبل ما اشوفه وبعدين يبقى مشكلة.
No, it's
بس
good.
حضرتك كنت بتقولي ايه؟
كنت بقول ان انت you are not welcome to attend the coming session without doing the homework.
حضرتك
انت
هتنزلي واحد
وغيرك.
جديد؟
ايه؟
حضرتك هتنزلي واحد جديد؟
القديم يا حبيبي.
حاضر.
اعمل بس انت القديم. والجديد لسه هنقعد نتخانق عليه بعدين. اعمل انت بس القديم بليز. ممكن؟
حاضر.
لو سمحت.
حاضر.
يلا يا شباب. باي باي. Take
Have a
care.
good day. Have a good day, miss.
Same to you. Bye.
Bye.